The morning shift on station began like any other. Captain walked through the main corridor, nodding at the various aliens who passed by. They clicked their mandibles in greeting. The crystalline hummed soft melodies as they glided past. The furry waved their four arms cheerfully. It was a normal day on a research station far from anywhere important. Had been stationed here for 2 years now. She was one of only 12 humans on the entire station. Most of the 800 residents were from older, more established species. Humans were newcomers to the Galactic Coalition. 23 years was nothing compared to the thousands of years other races had been traveling the stars. She found her brother in the xenobiology lab. Doctor was bent over a microscope, studying samples from the nearby nebula. He looked up and grinned when he saw her. Another exciting day of watching aliens be polite to each other, he teased. Someone has to make sure you scientists don't accidentally blow up the station, replied, smiling. Down in engineering, Park was running diagnostics on the defense grid. It was boring work but necessary. The shields protected them from space debris and radiation. Not that they expected any real trouble out here. The station orbited a dying star in a forgotten corner of space. Nobody bothered them. That changed at 9:47 station time. The alarms screamed to life. Red lights flashed throughout every corridor. His personal communicator buzzed urgently. She ran toward the command center, her heart pounding. Commander was already there, his insect eyes fixed on the main display. The screen showed 15 ships emerging from hyperspace. Large ships, warships. Ravagers, said, his voice tight. A full fleet. Felt cold. The Ravagers were a hive-mind species that had been destroying stations across this sector for months. They took no prisoners. They gave no warnings. They simply attacked and consumed everything. Send distress signals to all coalition forces, ordered. All frequencies. Ambassador floated forward, her crystalline body pulsing with worry. The nearest coalition fleet is 14 hours away. How long until they reach us? Asked. The tactical officer checked his instruments. The Ravager fleet will be in weapons range in 6 hours. The command center went silent. Everyone understood what that meant. Help would not arrive in time. Called an emergency meeting. Representatives from each species gathered in the council chamber. Fear filled the room like a physical presence. We have limited options, began. We can evacuate to the escape pods and scatter, hoping some survive. Or we can fight and buy time for the coalition fleet to arrive. Fight with what? An engineer asked. Our weapons are meant to deflect asteroids, not warships. Stepped forward. I can send a message to Earth forces. There might be human ships closer than the coalition fleet. His mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. With respect, Captain, your species barely has warp capability. You have what? A dozen patrol ships. What could they possibly do against 15 Ravager warships? Several others murmured agreement. Humans were known as curious and friendly, but not powerful. Earth had joined the coalition only recently. They had no real military to speak of. I still want to try, said quietly. Waved a claw dismissively. Send your message if it makes you feel better, but we need real solutions. The meeting continued, but it was clear there were no good options. The station's weapons could barely scratch a Ravager ship's shields. Their defenses would fail quickly under sustained assault. Left the meeting early. She went to the communications room and composed a narrow-beam transmission aimed at human-controlled space. She coded it with her military authorization from before she became a liaison officer. Then she sent it with the station's strongest transmitter, hoping someone would hear. Back in his lab, made a disturbing discovery. He had been studying the station's research files, trying to understand why the Ravagers would target them specifically. Then he found it. The station's scientists had been working on dimensional travel technology. If the Ravagers got that data, they could attack anywhere in the galaxy instantly. He ran to tell. The commander's face grew grim. "Then we cannot let them take this station," said. "We will fight, and if we lose, we will destroy everything before they can claim it." The station began preparing for battle, and her engineering teams worked to strengthen the shields. They rerouted power from non-essential systems. Every bit of energy went to weapons and defenses. Helped evacuate families to the inner sections of the station. Children cried as their parents tried to stay calm. The elderly moved slowly, helped by younger residents. Everyone knew what was coming. The Ravagers closed in. Their ships looked like dark insects against the stars, all sharp angles and glowing red ports. They moved in perfect formation, controlled by a single mind. At 1423, they opened fire. The first barrage hit the station's shields like a hammer. The entire structure shook. Lights flickered. Somewhere in the lower decks, pipes burst and alarms wailed. "Shields at 60%, the tactical officer reported. "Return fire," ordered. The station's weapons spat blue energy at the Ravager ships. The shots splashed harmlessly against their shields. It was like throwing rocks at a mountain. Another barrage, then another. The shields dropped to 40%. Hull breaches appeared in the outer sections. Emergency crews rushed to seal them. The casualty reports began coming in. Stood at her station, watching the tactical display. She had sent her message hours ago. There had been no response. Perhaps no one had heard. Perhaps no one was close enough to help. She thought about her home on Earth. She thought about her parents, her friends, everyone she had left behind to serve in space. She had wanted to prove that humans belonged out here among the stars. Now she would die on a forgotten station, and no one would remember. The Ravagers fired again. The shields dropped to 25%, then 15%. The command center filled with smoke from damaged consoles. Medics pulled an injured from her station, her fur matted with blue blood. "They're launching boarding craft," someone shouted. Stood tall, all defenders to positions. "We hold every corridor, every room. We make them pay for every meter." Grabbed a plasma rifle from the weapons locker. Appeared beside her, his face pale but determined. Joined them, her engineering tools replaced with a weapon. The Ravagers would take the station, but not easily, not without a fight. Outside, in the darkness of space, the Ravager fleet moved closer. Their weapons charged for another devastating volley. The shields flickered and failed. The station's doom seemed certain. And then the sensors detected something, a massive disruption in space, a hyperspace window opening. But it was not the Coalition fleet. It was something else entirely. The boarding pods hit the station's hull like bullets. Metal screamed as the Ravager craft burrowed through the outer plating. Emergency bulkheads slammed down, sealing off sections, but it was not enough. The invaders were inside. Crouched behind a barricade on Deck 7 with a dozen other defenders, they could hear the Ravagers coming. A chittering sound, like thousands of insects clicking in unison. It made her skin crawl. The first Ravager appeared at the end of the corridor. It looked like a nightmare, all black chitin and too many legs. Its eyes glowed red with the light of the hive mind. It carried weapons that seemed to grow from its own body. "Fire!" shouted. Plasma bolts filled the hallway. 3 Ravagers fell, their bodies smoking. But more came behind them, climbing over their dead without hesitation. They felt no fear. They felt nothing at all except the commands of the hive. The defenders fell back, firing as they retreated. A beside took a shot to the chest and went down. She grabbed his weapon and kept moving. There was no time to check if he was alive. In engineering, watched her screens with growing horror. The station's reactor was becoming unstable. The Ravager weapons were causing power surges throughout the system. If it continued, the entire reactor could explode. "We have maybe 2 hours," she told her team. "Less if they hit us again." Her assistant, a young named Tick, looked at her with wide eyes. "Can we stop it?" I don't know, admitted, but we have to try. They worked frantically, rerouting coolant systems and venting excess heat. It was like trying to stop a dam from breaking with their bare hands. For every problem they fixed, two more appeared. On deck 4 found himself defending a group of children. 20 small aliens huddled behind him, crying for their parents. He had never fired a weapon at a living thing before. He was a scientist, not a soldier. But when the Ravagers came, he pulled the trigger. His first shot went wide. The second one hit a Ravager in the leg. It stumbled but kept coming, fired again and again until his weapon was empty. Then he grabbed a metal pipe from a broken railing and swung it with all his strength. The pipe clanged off the Ravager's armor. It barely slowed down. A claw reached for him. Then other defenders arrived, driving the Ravagers back. Someone pulled away. The children were rushed to a safer location. His hands shook so badly he could barely hold his weapon. In the command center, the situation grew worse by the minute. The tactical display showed Ravagers advancing on multiple fronts. The defenders were being pushed back toward the core sections. The shields were gone completely. The hull was breached in 14 locations. Commander coordinated the defense, but even he could see it was hopeless. His mandibles clicked rapidly, a sign of stress in his species. "Coalition fleet status?" he asked. "Still 11 hours away," came the reply. 11 hours, they would all be dead in 2. A message came through from the lower decks. Ambassador's voice, weak and strained. "Commander, I am wounded. I do not think I will survive." His eyes closed briefly. "I will send medics." "No," said. "Save them for those who can still fight, but I want to say something. I was wrong about the humans. Captain tried to help us and I dismissed her. I underestimated them. Do not make my mistake." The line went dead before could respond. He looked across the command center to where had been standing, but she was gone, out fighting in the corridors somewhere. Humans were strange. They looked soft with their smooth skin and small size, but they fought as hard as anyone when it mattered. And her team were pinned down on deck 5. The Ravagers had cut off their retreat. Energy bolts scorched the walls around them. She counted 4 defenders left, including herself. They were almost out of ammunition. "We need to fall back to the next junction," she said. "We cannot," a soldier replied. "They are behind us too." Trapped's mind raced through options. There were none. This was how it ended. She thought of her message to Earth. No one had answered. No one was coming. She raised her weapon. "Then we make our stand here." The Ravagers charged. Fired until her weapon clicked empty. Then she drew a knife from her belt. It was a foolish gesture against armored monsters, but she would not die cowering. The lead Ravager was 3 meters away when the explosion came. Not from the Ravagers, from somewhere else. The entire station shook violently, fell to the floor, debris rained from the ceiling. The Ravagers stumbled, confused. In the command center, every alarm went off at once, stared at the sensors in disbelief. "Something just dropped out of hyperspace," the tactical officer said, his voice rising. "Something big." "The Coalition fleet?" asked hopefully. "No, sir, it is a single ship reading its signature now." The officer paused. His face went pale. "It is a human vessel." Felt a chill run through his body. Impossible. Human ships are barely armed. What can one ship do? But even as he said it, the sensors showed what was happening. The human ship was massive, larger than any of the Ravager warships. It hung in space like a dark cathedral, bristling with weapons. And it was opening fire. The tactical display lit up with indicators. The human ship's first salvo hit 3 Ravager cruisers simultaneously. Not just hit, destroyed. The Ravager ships simply exploded, torn apart by weapons that moved faster than anything had seen. "What are they firing?" he whispered. On the hull of the station, the Ravager boarding craft began pulling back. The hive mind had sensed danger. It was redirecting forces to deal with this new threat. Watched as the Ravagers in front of her suddenly turned and ran. Just ran, disappearing down the corridor as if she no longer mattered. She sat against the wall, breathing hard, not understanding what had happened. Her communicator crackled. "All station personnel, this is Commander. We have received assistance. A human warship has arrived and is engaging the Ravagers." His eyes went wide. Her message. Someone had heard her message. "Identify the human ship," ordered. The communications officer worked her console. "Signal coming through now. They are hailing us." A voice came over the speakers. Calm, human, speaking with an Earth accent that made one to cry. "Station, this is UESS Indomitable. We received your distress call. Hold your position. We are here to help." In engineering, looked at her screens and saw the reactor beginning to stabilize. The Ravager weapons had stopped firing at the station. She pulled up an external camera and gasped. The human ship was like nothing she had imagined. It moved through the Ravager fleet like a shark through fish. Its weapons fired continuously, each shot precise and devastating. Ravager ships tried to return fire, but their energy bolts were blocked by shields or destroyed by point defense systems. Made it back to the command center in time to see another Ravager cruiser explode on the tactical display. Then another. The human ship was not just winning, it was dominating. "I do not understand," said, staring at the screen. "How do they have such weapons? Such a ship?" The coalition intelligence said humans had only basic military capabilities. Entered the command center, dirty and exhausted. She looked at the display and a fierce pride filled her chest. "My people learned war long before we learned space travel, Commander," she said quietly. "We spent 10,000 years getting very, very good at killing each other. Now we have brought that knowledge to the stars." Turned to look at her, really look at her perhaps for the first time. "It seems we have underestimated your species," he said. Outside, the human warship continued its attack. Small fighter craft launched from its bays, swarming the remaining Ravager ships. The tide of battle had completely turned. The station was no longer doomed. The question now was whether any of the Ravagers would survive to report what they had seen. The Ravagers regrouped quickly. The hive mind was nothing if not efficient. 12 warships remained from the original 15. They formed a defensive sphere around their command vessel, trying to understand this new threat. On the bridge of the UESS Indomitable, Admiral Song watched the enemy formation with cold eyes. He was a tall man with gray in his hair and scars on his hands from wars fought before humanity ever left Earth. Behind him, his crew worked with quiet efficiency. "They are adapting their formation," his tactical officer reported. "Standard defensive pattern." "Predictable," said. "Myra target their command ship, full broadside." Lieutenant Myra smiled. Her fingers danced across her console, calculating trajectories and power curves with the precision of an artist. Firing solution locked. Weapons hot. "Fire." The Indomitable's rail guns spoke. Massive projectiles accelerated to 30% the speed of light. They crossed the distance to the Ravager fleet in seconds. The command ship's shields flared bright, trying to absorb the impact. They failed. The first projectile punched through the shields like they were paper. The second and third followed, tearing into the ship's hull. The Ravager command vessel broke apart in a brilliant explosion. On station, the defenders watched their screens in stunned silence. Commander could not believe what he was seeing. One shot, one coordinated attack. The enemy command ship was gone. "How powerful are their weapons?" he asked no one in particular. Was watching too. She knew those rail guns. Earth had developed them for their own wars, conflicts fought over resources and ideology in the centuries before first contact. The technology was simple but brutal. Throw metal fast enough and nothing can stop it. "Ravagers are scattering," the tactical officer reported. Breaking formation. Nodded. Launch fighters. Captain Jin, you are clear to engage. Deep in the Indomitable's hangar bays, Captain Jin Lee heard the order and grinned. He was young for his rank, barely 30, but he had more combat hours than most pilots twice his age. He strapped into his fighter, feeling the familiar weight of the harness. All wings, this is Jin. We have multiple targets. Stay loose and watch your spacing. Let us show these bugs what we can do. 40 fighters launched from the Indomitable, small craft that moved like angry hornets. They accelerated toward the Ravager fleet at speeds that made the alien defender's sensors struggle to track them. The Ravagers fired. Energy bolts filled space, but the human fighters danced between them, their pilots using instinct and reflexes honed by years of training, not training against drones or simulations, training against other humans who wanted to kill them just as badly. Jin's fighter spun through a debris field from the destroyed command ship. He came out on the other side with a Ravager cruiser in his sights. He squeezed the trigger and his plasma cannons roared. The shots hammered into the cruiser's engine section. Secondary explosions rippled across its hull. "Scratch one cruiser," Jin reported. "Who wants the next one?" His wingmates responded with enthusiasm. They spread out, attacking from multiple angles. The Ravagers tried to track them all and failed. The human fighters were too fast, too aggressive, too unpredictable. On the station, watched a small screen showing the fighter battle. He had never seen anything like it. The way the human pilots moved, it was like watching a deadly dance. No wasted motion. Every action had purpose. "They are magnificent," an engineer said beside him, her voice filled with awe. Back on the Indomitable, Sergeant Nam was preparing his Marines. They had received reports about the Ravager boarding parties still on the station. That would not stand, not while humans were nearby. Was built like a block of stone, short but impossibly broad. His armor made him look even bigger. He checked his weapon, a rifle that fired armor-piercing rounds at hypersonic speeds. Simple technology, human technology. "Listen up," he told his squad. "There are civilians on that station, families, children. The bugs got past their defenses and now they are scared. We are going to fix that. We are going to find every single Ravager on that station and we are going to kill them. Questions?" One Marine raised her hand. "Rules of engagement, sir." His face was hard. "If it is not human or friendly alien, shoot it. The Ravagers do not surrender. They do not retreat. They only die, so we will help them with that." The Marines loaded into drop pods. These were not gentle transports. They were armored shells designed to punch through hulls and deliver soldiers directly into combat zones. The pods launched, crossing the space between the Indomitable and station in minutes. They hit the station's hull hard. Metal groaned and buckled. The pods opened and the Marines poured out, moving in perfect formation. Watched them arrive on the internal sensors. The human soldiers moved through the corridors like they owned them. When they encountered Ravagers, there was no hesitation. The Marines fired in precise bursts, dropping the invaders with brutal efficiency. "They are clearing Deck 7, a tactical officer reported. "Moving to Deck 6 now." Made her way down to where the fighting was. She found Nam's squad advancing through a smoke-filled corridor. Bodies of dead Ravagers littered the floor. The Marines stepped over them without looking. "Captain," said, nodding to her, "you all right?" "Better now," replied. "Thank you for coming." "We got your message," said. "Admiral Song diverted from patrol as soon as we decoded it. Been pushing the engines hard to get here." Another Marine called out. Sergeant got movement ahead, multiple targets. "Stack up," ordered. His squad formed at a doorway. They went through as a unit, weapons up. Gunfire echoed. When the smoke cleared, 6 more Ravagers were dead. Joined in the corridor. He stared at the human Marines with wide eyes. Their armor was covered in scorch marks and dents, but they kept moving forward. Never backwards, always forward. "These are your people?" he asked his sister. "These are our people," corrected. "We might look soft to the other species. We might seem weak. But humans have been fighting wars since we lived in caves. We brought that experience with us to space." In orbit, the space battle continued. The Ravagers were down to 8 ships now. They tried to form another defensive formation, but Jin's fighters harassed them constantly. Every time they focused on one threat, another would strike from a different angle. Myra locked onto another target. "Admiral, I have a firing solution on the cruiser at bearing 270. "Take the shot," ordered. The Indomitable's plasma lances lanced out, beams of superheated matter that burned through armor and hull. The targeted cruiser tried to turn away, but it was too slow. The lances cut it in half. Both pieces tumbled away, leaking atmosphere and bodies. Admiral Song opened a channel to the remaining Ravager ships. He knew they would not respond. The hive mind did not negotiate, but he wanted them to hear anyway. "Ravager fleet, this is Admiral Song of the United Earth Star ship Indomitable. You came here to destroy innocent people. You failed. Now you will learn what happens when you threaten those under human protection." He closed the channel and turned to Myra. "Target the remaining ships. I want none of them to escape. None." "Yes, sir," Myra said, her fingers already moving across her console. The Indomitable advanced, its engines burning bright. The remaining Ravager ships tried to flee, but the human warship was faster. One by one, they were hunted down. One by one, they died. On the station, Nam and his Marines cleared the last Ravager boarding party. The fight ended in a cargo bay where 20 Ravagers had tried to make a stand. It took 3 minutes. When it was over, all 20 were dead. The Marines had 2 wounded. Came down to see for himself. He found standing over the body of what had been the Ravager boarding commander. The human sergeant's armor was scorched and dented, but he stood straight. "Your station is secure," Commander said. "We will leave a squad here until you can get proper repairs done." Looked around at the carnage. "Your soldiers are very effective." "We have had a lot of practice," replied simply. Back in space, the last Ravager ship exploded under fire from Jin's fighter wing. The young captain looped his craft in celebration before returning to the Indomitable. Admiral Song watched the tactical display clear of enemy contacts. All Ravager ships destroyed, station secured, mission accomplished. His crew remained silent, professional, but there was pride in that silence. They had jumped into a situation where 15 enemy warships threatened a civilian station. They had won. They had saved lives. Opened a channel to station. "Commander, this is Admiral Song. The threat has been neutralized. Your station is safe." His voice was shaky when he replied. "Admiral Song, on behalf of everyone on this station, thank you. We owe you our lives." "You owe us nothing," said. "We simply did what anyone should do. We helped." But as he closed the channel, allowed himself a small smile. Let the galaxy see what humans could do. Let them see that Earth's children had arrived, and they would not stand by while innocents suffered. The message had been sent, not with words but with action. And the galaxy was watching. The Indomitable held position near station, its weapons still hot and ready. Admiral Song stood on his bridge, reviewing damage reports. The ship had taken hits during the engagement. Not many, but enough to matter. "Hull breaches on decks 12 and 15, his engineering officer reported. "Shield generators operating at 70%. We have lost 3-point defense turrets." Nodded. "Casualties. 23 Marines wounded, 4 seriously. 7 fighter pilots injured during recovery operations. No deaths." No deaths. Against 15 Ravager warships they had lost no one, felt a grim satisfaction. His crew had trained for situations like this. They had prepared. Now that preparation had saved lives. On the station, stood in engineering with two human technicians from the Indomitable. She watched them work on the reactor stabilization with growing amazement. Their approach was completely different from what she had learned. "Why do you have so many backup systems?" she asked. One of the technicians, a woman named, laughed. "Because things break, especially in combat. We design everything assuming it will fail at the worst possible time." "That seems excessive." "Maybe," agreed, "but excessive is why we are still alive. Your reactor was about to explode. Now it is stable. Excessive engineering saved your station." Thought about that. The Coalition designed their systems to be elegant and efficient. Humans designed theirs to survive. Two different philosophies. She was beginning to see the wisdom in the human approach. In the medical bay, helped treat the wounded defenders. A human medic worked beside him, moving with quick confidence. The medic's name was, and she seemed to know exactly what to do for each alien species' biology. "How do you know so much about our medical needs?" asked. Smiled. "We studied. When Earth joined the Coalition, we spent years learning everything we could about the other species. Their biology, their culture, their weaknesses. Knowledge is a weapon, but it is also a tool for healing." She finished bandaging us injured limb and moved to the next patient. Watched her work and realized something. Humans prepared for everything. They learned, they trained, they planned. It was not just their weapons that made them dangerous. It was their mentality. Commander called a meeting in the command center. All department heads attended, along with Admiral Song, who had shuttled over from the Indomitable. The human admiral was tall and carried himself with quiet authority. "First," began, "I want to formally thank Admiral Song and his crew. Without their intervention, we would all be dead." There were murmurs of agreement from around the table. Several aliens looked at the Admiral with something like reverence. Raised a hand. "Please, no thanks are necessary. We simply responded to a distress call. Any Coalition vessel would have done the same." "But you were not a Coalition vessel," said. "You are an Earth ship, and you arrived hours before any Coalition forces could reach us." "How?" Met his eyes steadily. "My ship was on patrol in this sector. When we received Captain's distress signal, we came immediately." "On patrol," repeated slowly. "Earth has warships on patrol this far from your home system." "Earth has warships throughout Coalition space," said calmly. "We have been building our fleet for 20 years, quietly, without announcing it to every species in the galaxy." The room went silent, and Representative leaned forward, her crystalline body chiming softly. "How many ships?" "Enough," replied. "Earth learned long ago that peace requires strength. We prefer diplomacy. We prefer cooperation, but we prepare for war." Felt a chill. He had dismissed humans as minor players in galactic affairs, friendly but ultimately insignificant. He had been wrong, catastrophically wrong. In the recreation area, human Marines mingled with the station's defenders. Nam sat with a group of soldiers, sharing field rations. They clicked their mandibles nervously, uncertain how to act around these efficient killers. "You fought well," one of them said. "We could not stop the Ravagers, but you destroyed them easily." Shook his head. "It was not easy. The Ravagers are dangerous, but we trained for them. We studied their tactics. We knew what to expect." "How could you know?" another asked. "They are hive mind. They adapt quickly." "So do we," said. "Humans have fought hive minds before. Not aliens, but insects on our own world. Army ants, locusts. We learned how they think, how they move. That knowledge transfers." They looked at each other. Humans prepared for space combat by studying insects. It seemed absurd, but it had worked. One of the Marines, a young woman named Bo, spoke up. "Plus, we train against each other. Human soldiers practice against human soldiers. We are mean to each other in training. Really mean. So when we face aliens who fight differently, it is almost easier." Bo said it casually, but they understood the implication. Humans trained as if their opponents were just as smart, just as aggressive, just as creative as they were. Because they were. They trained against themselves. In the fighter bay, Captain Jin Lee supervised repairs to his wing. Several fighters had taken damage during the engagement. He walked among them, checking each one personally. A pilot approached him, all four arms gesturing excitedly. "Your flying was incredible. I have never seen such maneuvers. How did you learn to do that?" Jin grinned. "Video games." The blinked all six eyes. "I do not understand." "On Earth we have simulations, games. Humans play them for fun, but they teach real skills, spatial awareness, quick reactions, pattern recognition. I grew up playing flight simulators. By the time I joined the military, I had logged thousands of hours." "You prepared for war by playing." The sounded incredulous. "We prepared for war by doing everything," Jin said. "Sports teach teamwork and competition. Games teach strategy and reflexes. Our entertainment is training. Our training is entertainment. Everything we do makes us better at survival." Myra was giving a presentation to the station's defense officers. They had asked how she calculated firing solutions so quickly and accurately. She showed them her methods, and they stared in confusion. "You use mathematics from Earth's 20th century?" one officer asked. "These equations are ancient." "They work," Myra said simply. "Newer is not always better. These calculations are simple, fast, and reliable. In combat, you do not have time for complicated algorithms. You need answers immediately." She pulled up a tactical simulation. "Watch. Enemy ship moving at point 3C, range 50,000 kilometers. Weapon acceleration rate known. Target future position, not current position. Factor in light speed lag in sensors. Fire." The simulation showed a perfect hit. The officers murmured in appreciation. "But there are more elegant solutions," one protested. "Maybe," Myra agreed. "But can you calculate them in 2 seconds while your ship is being shot at?" "I can calculate this solution in 1 second. Fast and simple beats elegant and slow." It was another lesson in human philosophy. They did not aim for perfection. They aimed for effectiveness. Whatever worked, whatever kept them alive, that was what they used. Evening came, measured by the station's artificial day-night cycle. The immediate danger was over, but repairs would take weeks. Human engineering teams worked alongside the station's crew, teaching as they helped. Found her brother in the observation lounge, staring out at the Indomitable. The massive warship floated against the stars, a dark testament to human capability. "I never imagined," said quietly. "I knew Earth had a military, but I thought it was small, defensive. I did not know we had ships like that." "Most people did not," replied. "That was intentional. Earth's government believed that if we appeared weak, we might be attacked. If we appeared strong, we might be feared. So we appeared friendly and harmless while building strength in secret." "Is that not dishonest?" "Considered, maybe, but it kept us safe. And now, when others needed help, we had the power to provide it." They watched the ship together. Small figures moved outside it, repair crews working on the damaged sections. Even the Indomitable was not invincible. It had been hurt in the battle, but it had won. "The galaxy is going to see us differently now," said. "Yes," agreed. "We are no longer the curious newcomers. We are the ones who show up when no one else can, the ones who fight when fighting is needed." Admiral Song sent out a message to all coalition forces in the sector. It was a simple report of the engagement. 15 Ravager warships destroyed, 1 human ship, 0 friendly casualties. The message spread through galactic communication networks. Within hours, everyone knew the humans had fought and won decisively. Some species were relieved, others were worried, but all of them paid attention. Earth had announced itself not with words or diplomacy, but with action. The Indomitable would remain at station for another week, helping with repairs and security. Then it would return to patrol. There were other stations, other colonies, other places that might need help. And if they called, humans would answer. 3 days after the battle, the Coalition fleet finally arrived at station. 7 warships, heavily armed and ready for combat. They found the Ravager threat already eliminated and the station undergoing repairs with human assistance. The Coalition fleet commander, a proud named, met with Admiral Song aboard the Indomitable. His crystalline body pulsed with conflicting colors as he processed what he saw. The human ship was damaged but operational. The crew moved with casual confidence. "You engaged 15 Ravager warships alone," said. It was not a question but a statement of disbelief. "Yes," replied simply. "And you suffered no fatalities." "Correct." Was silent for a long moment. "The Coalition has been fighting the Ravagers for 6 months. We have lost 32 ships and thousands of lives. You destroyed an entire fleet in a single engagement." Gestured to a display showing the battle data. "We had advantages. We arrived with surprise. Our weapons were effective, and we have trained extensively for this type of combat." "How extensively?" "Earth has been preparing for extraterrestrial threats since before we made first contact," explained. "We hoped for peace, but we prepared for war. It is what humans do." Studied the human admiral. There was no arrogance in his words, just simple fact. Humans prepared, humans trained, humans survived. "The Council will want to know about your fleet," said carefully. "Then we will tell them," replied. "We have 7 ships like the Indomitable currently operational, 14 more in various stages of construction, plus escorts, fighters, and support vessels. Earth has built a military to match any threat we might face." 7 dreadnoughts, repeated slowly. "Why did you keep this secret?" "We did not keep it secret. We simply did not announce it. There is a difference. If anyone had asked, we would have told them, but no one asked. Everyone assumed humans were too new, too primitive, too weak to matter." The words stung because they were true. The Coalition had ignored Earth's military development because they could not imagine humans being relevant. On the station, worked with a team of human engineers to redesign the defense grid. The humans showed her techniques that would never have occurred to her. Redundant systems, overlapping fields of fire, multiple backup power sources. "Your designs are so complicated," she said too. The human engineer smiled. "Yes, but complicated means reliable. If one system fails, 3 others can take over. That is the human way. The Coalition way is elegant simplicity." "And how did that work against the Ravagers?" asked gently. Was quiet. The Coalition's elegant defenses had failed immediately. The humans' complicated, redundant, excessive systems had saved them. Sometimes complexity was survival. Received a message from his university. They wanted him to write a paper about his experience during the battle, not about the Ravagers but about the humans, how they fought, how they thought, how they won. He sat down with Nam to ask questions. The Marine sergeant was surprisingly thoughtful. "What makes human soldiers effective?" asked. Thought for a moment. "We accept that we might die. Other species fear death, avoid it. Humans know death is coming eventually anyway, so we are willing to risk it for something important. That makes us dangerous. But you also protect each other fiercely." "Yes, we know we might die, but we will do everything to make sure our brothers and sisters do not. Every human life matters. We take casualties personally." Wrote quickly, trying to capture his words. "The Coalition sees you as aggressive." "We are," agreed. "But aggressive does not mean cruel. We fight hard, but we fight for others. That is the difference. We do not start wars, we end them." The station slowly returned to normal operations. The dead were mourned. The wounded recovered. Families reunited. Life continued, but everyone knew things had changed. Commander sent his official report to Coalition Command. He did not hold back. He described how human forces had saved them when no one else could, how human weapons had proven superior, how human tactics had won decisively. He ended the report with a recommendation. The coalition should formally recognize Earth's military capability and integrate human forces into our defense planning. To ignore them would be foolish and dangerous. Dangerous, not because humans were aggressive, but because underestimating them was fatal. The Ravagers had learned that lesson too late. News of the battle spread throughout coalition space. Other species reacted in different ways. Some were grateful that humans had proven to be powerful allies. Others were nervous about what this meant for galactic power balance. A few were angry that humans had hidden their strength. But everyone agreed on one thing: humans could no longer be dismissed. Earth's government released a statement. It was carefully worded, diplomatic but firm. They confirmed their fleet's size and capability. They expressed their commitment to coalition security. They offered to assist in the Ravager conflict. But they also made something clear: Earth would defend itself and its interests. They would help those who needed it, but they would not be pushed around or ignored. Captain was promoted to full ambassador status. She would represent Earth in coalition affairs, serving as a bridge between humanity and the alien species. Her first official act was to propose a joint training program. Human soldiers would train with coalition forces, sharing techniques and knowledge. The proposal was accepted immediately. Every species suddenly wanted to learn from humans. Jin's fighter wing became famous. Young pilots across the galaxy studied recordings of the battle, trying to understand how the humans flew. Flight schools began incorporating human techniques into their curriculum. Myra was offered a position as instructor at the Coalition's primary weapons academy. She accepted. Within a year, her students were calculating firing solutions twice as fast as before. Nam and his Marines remained at the station for 2 weeks, then rotated out. They were replaced by another human detachment. Earth committed to maintaining a permanent security presence at station. Other stations began requesting similar protection. The Indomitable departed after 8 days. Admiral Song received a hero's welcome when he returned to Earth, but he deflected the praise to his crew. They had done the work. They had won the battle. Before leaving, met with one final time. The commander looked older somehow, humbled by recent events. "I underestimated your species," admitted. "I thought humans were harmless, friendly but weak. I was wrong." "You were not entirely wrong," replied. "We are friendly. We prefer peace. But we are not weak. We learned long ago that good intentions mean nothing without the strength to back them up." "Why did you come when we called?" asked. "We had dismissed you, ignored your offer to help, yet you risked your ship and crew for us." Smiled slightly. "Because it was the right thing to do, because innocent people needed help, that is enough reason for humans." He extended his hand, looked at it, then carefully placed his claw in the human's grip. They shook, sealing a new understanding between their species. 2 months later, the Ravager threat was eliminated. Human forces worked alongside coalition fleets to hunt down and destroy every Ravager installation. The hive mind that had terrorized the outer sectors was broken. Earth's military prowess was no longer questioned, but more than that, their willingness to help was recognized. Humans fought not for conquest or glory, but for protection. They defended those who could not defend themselves. The galaxy learned a valuable lesson. Humanity had spent 10,000 years waging war on itself. They had become terrifyingly good at combat. They had developed weapons, tactics, and strategies refined through countless conflicts. But they had also learned why to fight, not for territory or resources, not for pride or revenge. They fought for each other, for their families, for innocent lives, for what was right. And now they brought both lessons to the stars: the knowledge of how to fight and the wisdom of when to fight. 1 year after the battle, a monument was erected on station. It listed the names of all who died defending against the Ravagers. At the bottom, a simple inscription. They believed no help would arrive. They were wrong. When the darkness came, humanity answered. Let us never forget those who stand watch so others may live in peace. Stood before the monument with her brother. Had remained at the station, continuing his research. Had joined Earth's engineering corps, designing new station defenses. The survivors had moved on with their lives, but they remembered. "Do you think things will be different now?" asked. Nodded, "Yes, humans are no longer outsiders. We are protectors, defenders. When someone calls for help, we will answer." Above them, through the transparent dome of the observation level, stars shone bright and eternal. Somewhere out there, other human ships patrolled. Other crews stood ready, waiting for the next call, ready to help whoever needed it. Earth had come to the stars not seeking war. They had come seeking peace, friendship, and understanding. But they had brought with them the tools and knowledge to protect those ideals. The galaxy was vast and dangerous. It needed defenders. Humanity had volunteered. The message had been sent at station, not with words but with action, not with threats but with sacrifice. Humans would stand alongside any species that needed them. They would fight when necessary. They would win when they fought. And they would never abandon those who called for help. The void was vast and filled with dangers, but humanity had emerged from that void, and they would not let the light go dark, not while even one human ship remained to answer the call. They had believed no help would arrive, but help had come, and it would come again whenever it was needed. That was humanity's promise to the galaxy. That was their gift to the stars.